All right. It is Wednesday. It is Empowerment Wednesday, and I am Tanya. And today I have another very, very special guest. Of course, you know that we choose people that we know have a story to tell, and it's going to not just be fluff, but it's going to get into some nice, deep things that we can talk about. But just before I tell you about who my very, very special guest is, let me just formally open the show. Welcome to Empowerment Wednesday. I'm Tanya Powell. I'm an entrepreneur, guidance counselor, and life coach. And I'm inviting you to subscribe to this channel to engage in Conversation TV on YouTube and follow us, Tanya's Body Care and Tanya Edwards, on Facebook. And today, our focus is on herbology. Afro-Jamaican Herbal Medicine. And just before I tell you about my very, very special guest, who she is, I want to share with you an empowerment quote for today. And the empowerment quote is taken from a theologian from the past called Charles H. Spurgeon. And he said, "Faith goes up the stairs that love has built and looks out the window which hope has opened." So hope you got all that imagery a while ago, right? Faith goes up the stairs that love has built and looks out the window which hope has opened. And that takes me to the introduction of my very, very special guest. Today, my guest is Dr. Denise Daley. And Doc, I'm going to ask you to help me pronounce one of these words. But let me tell you a little bit more. She's program director of the College of Health Sciences at the University of Technology in Jamaica. She has a Master of Philosophy and a Doctor of Philosophy in Biochemistry, specializing in, what is this word, Doc?
Pharmacognosy.
Pharmacognosy. See, I'm learning too. And she has a depth of knowledge on natural products. She has done work on the eucalyptus plant and has, it helps with diabetes and the lowering of blood sugar. It helps with hypertension as well. And she received it received the USA patent in 2016 for novel findings, very important work. And Dr. Denise Daley presented early findings at the University Diabetes Outreach Program and received poster awards in 2009 and 2010. Now, this research information won the Sectional Prize for Health and Wellness in 2012 and at the Minister of Science and Technology Awards, and also capped prestigious prizes. Innovator of the Year it was, and she was also awarded the UWI Graduate Scholar Award in 2013 and the UWI Principal Award in 2014. Doc, that is just a little bit of the important work that you've done and the number of awards that you have received. Me want to clap already and say, well done. But you just come, right? So even though you've done all of that, there's so much more to get done.
Indeed, yes, I have. I hope to do a lot more in this area.
Absolutely. I'm
Yes.
right with you there. I'm hoping with you. But as we start this interview, which we're going to also upload to YouTube in a little bit from now, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Dr. Daley, and where in Jamaica did you originate from?
Okay, I was born in Clarendon, but my family, we moved to Kingston when I was like 2, so I claim both.
Mhm.
And yeah, so growing up, I loved playing outside, loved the bush. I always go with my grandmother sometimes. When you're in Kingston, you visit the country every summer
Right.
and so on, and Christmas. So I'm always there anyway. And yeah, just learn to love outdoor and tie the goat with her and so on, pick mango
Mhm.
while you're out there and all of that. So that was fun. But schooling was definitely in Kingston. I went to Kingsway, then Alpha, then Holy Child, and
You went to Alpha?
Primary.
Okay, okay.
Primary. I went to
Well,
Alpha
anything
Primary.
Alpha is good. I'm an
Yeah.
Alpha Academy girl, so
Yes.
yeah,
So right next door.
right next door.
Yeah. So it was early childhood and then UWI. And research came to me, in fact, in my final year at UWI, where I was wondering what to do next. And I was like, you know, going through my degree was in biotech, where I looked at mostly plants. I just loved looking at the plant life. I did zoology too, and then that was it. So it was all about plants. And I was like, okay, I want to do my master's
Mm-hmm.
with plants. So I basically combined that love for both and moving forward in with my career and enrolled in the master's. And that's where I looked at the eucalyptus plant.
Mm.
One of the things, so we looked at the plant, I looked at the plant to see if it really says the folklore behind it, does it really work? I know there's a lot of folklore uses for the eucalyptus, but I was mainly focusing on diabetes and hypertension.
Mm.
Because in Jamaica, some communities that have the plants, they'll drink it to lower the blood sugar and they drink it to lower their blood pressure. But is
Right.
it true? Does it really work? Is it just anecdotal? So I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to find that out and not just find out if it works, what in it is causing it to work. So the
Right.
active compound. And that carries me to my work as a pharmacognosist, because as a pharmacognosist, that's what we do. We take medicinal plants or medicinal animals. I mostly work with plants.
Mm-hmm.
And you find the active component in it. And sometimes you can carry it further. You can characterize this active component. You can find the pathway into which it works. You can find, is it stable to make pharmaceuticals? So you get that initial withdrawal or extraction, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
further work with the crude drugs. So that's me, pharmacognosist. So I love doing that. I work at UTech. I'm on leave now for a while, but I work at
Mm-hmm.
UTech as a program director for the master's in complementary and alternative medicine and the bachelor's in herbal science.
Right.
So I've been trying to impart the knowledge and having workshops about
Mm-hmm.
nutraceuticals and so on, and making products with herbs. So that's my love.
Right.
And yeah,
And
that's
you are passionate about it. And I actually
yeah.
met you when I did a short course at
Mhm.
UTech, which you taught, and I learned how to do herbal tablets and so on and so forth. But
Yeah.
you talk about herbology, and we're going to go into linkages between folklore and medicine. Let's start again with the eucalyptus, which you studied.
Mhm.
What does folklore say about the eucalyptus?
Okay, good. With eucalyptus, we know it, the oil. In Jamaica, we use the oil a lot for cold and your flu and stuffy nose and stuff like that. The
Mm-hmm.
leaves, only some communities will use the leaves as a tea. So the leaves can be had as a tea. The leaves, sometimes they'll make it into small powder and they sprinkle it onto salads and so on in other
Mm-hmm.
countries, right? In Portland, we got our sample from Portland. Portland, you have a lot of the eucalyptus tree and this
Okay.
particular species. So in folklore, you hear your grandmother growing up, you hear them say, oh, go and boil some sursi.
Mm-hmm.
Pick 3 soursop leaf.
Right.
Go and take out the ginger, crush it
Yes.
and add it to the water.
Are the leaf alive?
Or the leaf alive. And sometimes they'll say, oh, don't boil it. When the water boil, you drop it in there and dry it. So
Right.
all of these information is science. So again, I love talking to elders. I love talking to grandparents and any grand. I love talking
Mm-hmm.
to them. So you learn a lot. Now, learning from them and being a scientist, you try to combine it. So is it true? Grandmother says Cersei work. As a scientist, you start reading how much work is done on the Cersei. Does it
Mm.
really go? Does it really help to lower the blood sugar as well? Does it help with stimulating the blood and all of that? And the more
Right.
you read, you find that grandma right is true. And you also find that grandma right in how you prepare it. You don't boil it, you dry it. Because
Mm.
sometimes when you boil it, as a scientist, you realize you destroyed some of the compounds, so it's no longer medicinal. When you dry it,
Mm.
it's just enough to pull out the extract and you get the medicinal compound. So I'm
Ah.
telling you, our grandparents don't know the science about it, but
Mhm.
if you get the information from them, we call it oral tradition. They have the recipe, the plant, and all the steps that scientists use to discover what's in the plant and if it works.
Now, question is between, let's stick on the eucalyptus for a little bit. So when you did your research on the eucalyptus, were the findings in line with the folklore?
Yes, similarly. Yes, and it was so good because I get excited in the lab. So when I do an experiment, we I did animal studies. So after we do the extract, we test it on the animals to see if it's effective.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, it's effective. You're like, yes, it really lowered the blood sugar, so all excitement. One of the things I looked at also was, how do I compare it? How do I go and tell my grandmother how effective it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it works, it does, but how effective? So I also compared it to um, a pharmaceutical drug that they recommend for diabetics, which is
Okay.
metformin. So when I did the same experiment using the metformin, it lowered it similar to metformin.
Are you serious?
Yes, and one of the active compounds. So I had three active compounds, and one of the active compounds it actually lowered it better than metformin. I was like, "What? Groundbreaking?" And that's where the
Right.
patent came about because of
Right.
how it worked and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So it did work like that. It did lower the blood sugar, and then of course a lot of diabetics have hypertension as well.
Mm-hmm.
Does it work? So I did the same. I compared the extracts to captopril, that's a known hypertension drug as well.
Okay.
And it works similarly in lowering it. So there was no significant difference when you looked at the results between the drug
Mm-hmm.
and the extract. So it was similar in eliciting that effect. And it was a discovery. So
Wow.
folklore was right. And it
Mm-hmm.
did have the active compounds. I isolated it from those active extracts. And those compounds and the formulation was patented and so
Mm-hmm.
on.
What do you do when you patent your
You
research
find it?
findings?
All right, there's a number of steps you can go afterwards. One, you can sell the patent and get royalty from it. You can
Mm-hmm.
start your production and make products from it, and you
Okay.
can monetize. So with a
Mm-hmm.
patent, it's good to start monetizing, going into the industry and spreading the word. And that's how your research goes now from bench to
Mm-hmm.
the market.
Right.
Translational research, we call it. Mhm.
Now, when I use the word Afro-Jamaican medicine, does that make any sense to should it make sense to the average person?
It should, because most of our plants are from African origin. So they're
Mm-hmm.
quite similar. But Jamaica is out of many one people. So we have a lot of plants from other cultures as well that's on the
Right.
island, which has become Jamaicanized, so to speak, making our species even more effective, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, the cannabis. Everybody like Jamaican cannabis. Everybody likes Jamaican turmeric. Everybody likes Jamaican ginger. And these are found in other countries, but I don't know, the climate, the soil, the sea,
Mm-hmm.
it just makes it very potent. And yes, so that's part of it.
Right. Can you think, you mentioned some a while ago, maybe in a general way, but can you think of any herbs or spices that came out of Africa, maybe even India, because our history tells us
Mhm.
about the tours that Columbus did and his entourage.
Yeah.
But can you think of any specific ones?
Yes, Aki, and your pimento,
Mm.
and some of our groundbreaking food, mostly food, breadfruit and so on. A lot of the food items came as well. And for India, we had like turmeric,
Mm-hmm.
the sativa and the indica,
Right.
and moringa. That's one of my
Mm.
favorite plants from
Mm-hmm.
India's side and so on. Eucalyptus was more from Asia side, Indonesia and that side of the world. So
Yes.
it's coming all over, but most are from Africa, separate from what was found on the island before.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you mean that even in Jamaica we are out of many one people, even in terms of our flora and fauna.
Well, yes, even in terms of that, that grand mix just makes it even more interesting to be Jamaican
Hmm.
and to, to find value in what we have on the island
Right,
because it's
but we
so unique.
spice it up because where we're
Yeah.
positioned in the Caribbean Sea makes
Mm-hmm.
our soil even more potent. I understand. So I hear
Mm-hmm.
that ginger or Jamaican ginger is more potent than a lot of other places because of our soil.
Yes, and the
Is that
turmeric, or
and
turmeric too. So
well?
we find that with a lot of our crops. So as a pharmacognosist and a
Hmm.
researcher, I think Jamaica can make so much more money from our herbs and
Hmm.
our agricultural crops. Yes, we're doing a good thing with a lot of the agricultural crops, pimento, ginger, turmeric. We're shipping those out and so on.
Hmm.
Some of our herbs is such a smaller market now, but trust me, being overseas, you want a little piece of Jack in the bush because you know it's effective, but you can't get it. And then you
Hmm.
Google it and you look at the price, you're like, is it worth it? You know what? I'll
Yeah.
probably run go to the pharmacy and just get it over with because of the
Hmm.
price. Now, if imagine if we had farmers with the herbs, you have a field over there, so with little leaf of life
Right.
and they ship it out and you have the market because
Hmm.
Jamaicans everywhere still want a little bit of Jamaican when you
Right.
need it,
So we
right?
actually need people now to go into farming and farm
The
Jack in the Bush and farm. I'm going to ask you about Jack in the Bush because I'm not so familiar with that one. But what I love to
Mhm.
share is my own, as a child, I was
Mhm.
diagnosed with asthma.
Yeah,
It gone. Thank you,
like,
Jesus.
yeah, grow
But
it
I
out.
was hospitalized for 2 weeks. And then I
Yeah,
had to keep going to the National Chest Hospital for a while for treatment and so on. But
yeah.
I don't remember if it is my mother or somebody else in the family taught me to,
Hmm.
when I start feeling the wheezing coming along or the tightening of the chest, I
Yeah.
would get the leaf alive, beat it up, juice it, put a little lime in there, and
Hmm.
take that, and voila, in a
Couple
couple
of
hours
years
or so, you don't even remember that you were wheezing. And so that was my one of my specific
remedies.
experiences. But tell me about Jack in the Bush. What is that and what is it used for?
No, Jack in the Bush, it just randomly came up as an example to use, but
Mm-hmm.
you find it in a lot of the countrysides. Kingston, you find it in the cooler parts. You wouldn't find it where it's hot and very and a lot of trodding happening, but you find
Mm-hmm.
it across the island, right? It is. I just looked up the scientific name because I couldn't remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Eupatorium
Mm-hmm.
coloratum. So it has a slight fragrance to it, so you can be familiar with it once you learn it. Now,
Right.
used for different things. I know it's an anti-inflammatory. So you boil it for tea, help with any
Mm-hmm.
pain that's happening, any swelling. It also has antimicrobial properties. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you add it to your wormout blend up or
Mm-hmm.
remedy. You boil up, you'd add it to that and so on. So it's a nice little herb and it tastes good as a tea. I think Tops makes it as a tea.
Yeah, they have a nice
A
blend. I
wild, yeah.
remember going to a course at Scientific Research Council
Yeah.
and came upon busy
Mm-hmm.
as tea. Now, I thought that it was only something you take when you
Bitter.
had
Oh.
ackee poisoning or whatever, but it was there as a tea that you can drink regularly. And
Yes.
also came upon vervine. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, let me try. And the vervine actually tasted quite nice.
And exotic.
Yes,
Because
and I'm
it
hearing
has
more about vervine as well. Are those
aphrodisiac
plants? Excuse you?
as a slight aphrodisiac as well.
Okay, then I needed to know that so I can know what to do and what not to do, right?
Yeah, and it's also vervine is also good with for female because you have two types of vervine too. You have the
Okay.
female vervine and the male vervine, and you learn that when you're in the bush. The
Mm,
female one is good for the female reproductive system. The male one good for the male reproductive system. So they add it to different remedies if you want to flush and infertility and all of that.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, but it has that nice aroma. It's kind of like lavender. When you smell it, you just feel relaxed, and the
Right.
aphrodisiac part of it also is known and mentioned.
Yes, yes.
Become
So
herbalist.
tell me about a couple persons on Facebook put their what they were familiar with, from their parents. And I'm
Mhm.
seeing stuff like cinnamon and a couple others. What can you tell us about cinnamon? And I'm trying to bring up what the others were.
Okay, sure. Cinnamon is not just a spice, but again, it's a medicinal plant. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of research has been done with cinnamon, with diabetes, because if you have it, the leaves or the bark, I think the bark has more medicinal components to lower the blood sugar.
Okay.
It's yes, even the mechanism by which it works, how it works to lower it, that has been researched. So it's a good medicinal plant as well. It's for hypertension. It helps to keep your blood pressure normal.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it has some blood, it would make blood white enhancement. So it helps to clean the blood, which means it
Okay.
also helps to boost the immune system when you have it on a regular basis. So if you have it as a part of your regular meals, you're having porridge, add your cinnamon, or you're having some hot chocolate, I always add cinnamon. It just tastes nice.
Mm-hmm.
Your cakes and so on. So adding it to your daily meals help to make it a functional food and a
Mm.
medicinal herb. So you're using a medicinal herb as a food, and that's
Right.
how you enhance your daily life, not just, oh, let me just take it as, as a medicine,
Mm-hmm.
but make it
Mm-hmm.
a part of your lifestyle. So that's good to add all
Right.
along.
Some persons mentioned the soursop leaves and
Oh
cayenne pepper.
yes. Oh yes. Soursop leaf, the tea tastes good, but cancer, that area of research is booming now, where the soursop leaf, it's annona, that's the scientific name, and you have a lot of annona alkaloids that are extracted, and
Mm-hmm.
they are anti-cancer. They allow the cancer cells to burst. So
Mm.
apoptosis. So the cancer cells burst, they basically kill themselves. Your normal cells are fine. So it's like you're
Wow.
getting rid of the bad seed in the community and
Wow.
everybody is still alive. And that's the beauty of herbs. You find that it's so in sync with the body. A lot of times your herbal remedies would target the unwanted cells that are around and leave your
Mm-hmm.
good cell, your normal cells to now populate. Because for example, your cancer cells, they deprive your cells by pulling the food and the oxygen, and your cells are just sitting there beside it, staring until they die. So
Mm.
having your soursop leaf, it's a good as an anti-cancer remedy, and it's good to prevent cancer cells within the
Mm.
body. It's
Right.
it also shows properties for boosting immune. Once you hear about building up your cells, you know the immune system. And herbs
Mm-hmm.
have so many compounds, oftentimes you hear that being repeated. So even having one herbal tea a day can
Mm-hmm.
really help your body a far way. Is that right?
Wow. So
That's right.
question though, because
Yeah.
I do some crazy stuff sometimes, right? And
Mhm.
recently, I just felt like I just had remember that there is this drink on the market in the
Mhm.
US called Dr. Pepper.
Mhm.
And I was like, what would happen if I tipped a little pepper, not on the food because we're all used to that?
Mhm.
What would happen if I made a little lemonade and put a
Mhm.
little pepper in my lemonade?
Mhm.
And I tried
How
it.
is it?
And listen, I was doing it for days. And of course, my whole household, them know me mad already, right? Staying mad, right? Because I like to try things. I
Mhm.
felt like I was adding it to everything that I was drinking because when it
Yeah,
went inside, it just had this
warm.
nice, warm feeling.
Mhm.
Am I sane for doing that?
You are sane, you're quite fine, and it is quite effective because pepper causes the vasodilation. So it helps to open the blood vessels and warm the body. So it's used as a pain remedy. So it's good. It helps
Mhm.
to reduce the inflammation and anything that's happening. So a lot of your rubs will have pepper in it. You do the extraction and you have
Ah.
to put some pepper in it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my remedy that I make for my family has pepper as well because of its properties, the capsaicin in it.
Mm-hmm.
So pepper is quite effective, and even if you add It's spicy. So I told somebody how to make the remedy, and they put like 3 peppers in there. That's too
Mm-hmm.
much pepper. So you can have that itching,
Yeah.
too much.
If they
It
can have an
hurts.
allergic reaction.
Yes, and your
Mm-hmm.
body tell you too much.
Mm-hmm.
But it causes vasodilation, helps to reduce inflammation, warm the body, relaxes the muscles. So all of those cramped up or tensed muscles, you can
Mm-hmm.
have a nice balm or oil, and you
Mm-hmm.
massage it and so on. But of course, persons will have to test if they're allergic, on small
Right.
stuff and see.
Right.
But it's
That
very
makes
good.
sense.
Hmm.
I had an experience years ago. Like I woke up one morning and I was still lying in bed, and it was like I had this vision where
Hmm.
somebody just said, "Drink this," and my entire body filled up with the scent of um of rosemary. No,
Hmm.
honestly, at the time, I just thought that these were bush, and I didn't like bush. I didn't appreciate it. So I was like, and I
Yeah.
remember getting it, not doing it, not drinking it.
Hmm.
The experience though was like so vivid that it was like, okay, Tanya, you need to do this, but I'm fighting, I'm struggling with
Yeah.
myself to do it because I'm saying this is bush.
Hmm.
And I didn't do it. And a couple weeks later, I caught a cold.
Huh.
Doc, it was the kind of, this was years ago, but it was the kind of cold where when you cough, you find
You
it's
feel
like
it.
it's sliding up and down your
Hmm.
chest.
The rattling.
Right, the rattling, as Jamaicans would say. And it took a long time for me to get rid of that cold.
Yeah.
Months later, one of my aunts came to Jamaica and brought this book on herbal medicine. And I sat there looking at it, and lo and behold, I looked in there and saw the rosemary.
Mhm. Yeah.
That one of the things that it's good for is cool.
Yeah.
I think that God was saying, let me protect you from what is coming. And I
Yeah.
resisted it and caught it, but eventually. So, is there anything else you can? Because I know there are two types of rosemary. My mom tells me one is good for washing the hair. What
Hmm.
can you tell us about rosemary?
Well, the scientific name Rosamarius officinalis.
Mm-hmm.
That's the rosemary, and then you have different varieties.
Mm.
So it they still have the medicinal components, but of course, in Jamaica, one tastes better, the other tastes. So you have different uses, but it's still rosemary, but the variety differs. Rosemary is very good for cold and respiratory ailments
Mm-hmm.
because it's an antioxidant. It
Ah.
also has anti-inflammatory properties, and it
Mm-hmm.
also helps to get rid of cold buildup. I'm trying to remember the word for the buildup of the cold, but
Is that
nonetheless,
the
that's
film?
what it
Is that
does.
the film?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like when you have mucus and so on, or
Right.
and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the aroma as well. It's used in aromatherapy. Just the smell of the rosemary as well. It
Right.
stimulates. It's a stimulant as well. So having it as a tea gets you going and so on. And you add it to a lot of tonics.
Mm-hmm.
Colic, gas, rosemary tea is good to have, and nausea.
Right. Right. Right.
Very good for the hair too. So I blend it up and add it to some of my oils for
Mm-hmm.
the hair. Mhm.
So another question is: is there anything you can tell me about basil? Some people say basil.
Basil.
What can you tell us about that?
They also call it tulsi tea. So it's
Oh, okay.
different other
I'm
cultures.
learning.
Yes, because I keep hearing about tulsi. I'm like, what's the tulsi? So I looked it up. Me
Mm-hmm.
start researching it. When I looked it up and look at the scientific name, it was basil or basil as we call it as well. No, we use it as a herb in our meats and foods and salads and soups. So that's good. And they have so many different varieties and they're
Right.
all medicinal. It's good also for the respiratory. And you realize a lot of the herbs, it's so strong. You have the volatile oils that help. Yes, so
Mm-hmm.
antioxidant. And once you get that astringent smell, help with the kidneys as well, flush out the kidneys and
Right.
or you're getting rid of your toxins. So
I'm like
get
I
to
have
her.
a natural life living lessons on some of these things, right? So
Mhm.
I was making a batch of soap. For
Mhm.
those persons who don't know that I make soap, please check out Tanya's Body Care
Mhm.
on all across social media.
Mhm.
Doc, I was making soap and I bought the basil essential oil.
Yeah.
And I wanted my soaps to be loud to have the scent.
Yes.
I ended up having diarrhea for all the days because the scent was so strong in the
Wow.
house. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't eat anything
Just
to give
smell
me
it.
diarrhea, but I was just like, my system was just purging.
Yes.
From the
That's true.
time I got rid of the last remnants of those bales of soap, I have not bought another
And
another
then
batch
no
of.
more flushing.
I was like, this is, I couldn't believe that I didn't drink it. I didn't put it
Mm-hmm.
on my skin. I just
Just smell it.
made it, but it was in the house and it was curing. And I was sick for the entire time.
Yeah, that's the power of the volatile oils that they have. And that's why I use it in aromatherapy. And a lot of times you hear, oh, just drop a little bit
Hmm.
because the oils are so strong. So, yeah.
Yes, it does make sense to drop a little bit or to
Mhm.
research more why you're using that particular oil, not just because of the scent of it, but the
Mhm.
usage. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about, you just touched on essential oils.
Mhm.
How does a plant or a tree
Mhm.
become an essential oil?
Okay. You know, we look to plants for food. So basically, we're going to cut them down.
Mm-hmm.
No, plants can't move. They can't run from us and all of that. So plants will produce compounds as a part of their defense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these compounds, sometime in the form of oils or powders, when you take them out, these are all different compounds, are all part of their defense or allows the aroma to attract insects for pollination. But that's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
Defense, pollination, or for their, well, their food is starch. So the essential oils are part of their defense. So when they produce it, they have them in their leaves or their barks. If an animal approaches it and bites into it, sometimes essential oil is so astringent, they'll spit it out. That animal
Mm.
is not going to bite that plant again. They
Wow.
don't like that taste. But, and that reduces the number of predators it has, feeding on it.
Mm.
You would have
Wow.
one animal that likes the taste and he said, all right, I can deal with you because you clearly
Mm-hmm.
like the scent of, this one. So the essential oils are
By the way, I'm
produced.
having my cup of cinnamon tea.
Yes. And I just had some peppermint.
Mm,
So I'm with you.
mm,
So we're all herbal today, right?
yes.
Yeah. So the oils are normally in little granules in the leaves or the barks, whichever part you have the highest concentration. And it
Right.
just depends. When the plant is damaged, it comes up. And we
Mm,
can just cut, we can harvest and extract them by just heating or different methods. And you get your oils, you just extract it and use it. All for defense. Some smell good. Some
mm-hmm.
animals don't like it, some will like it. But at the end of the day, the plant is protecting itself and ensuring its continuity with pollination.
Right.
Mhm.
And then we can now go buy the concentrated oil. It's literally like you've compressed the tree down into a little bottle.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
And that's why it's so expensive because a
Mm-hmm.
little bar or jar of essential
Essential
oil,
oils.
you
Right.
need a whole heap of plant material to just get that. So it's very
Absolutely.
expensive at times. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
the method of extraction is tedious and expensive,
Right.
and sometimes it's so concentrated, though, you have to dilute it in order for you not to be sick or have allergic
Right.
reactions and so on. So sometimes it's a cost benefit for
Mm-hmm.
extract using it. So, yeah.
Right. And tell us about, for example, Neem. Neem has taken up a lot of traction
Yes.
recently. I use it to help repel mosquitoes, for
Mhm.
example. I am told you can drink it. My mom and country people tell me you can drink Neem, but you shouldn't drink it too strong because there are other things it can do. What can you tell us about neem?
Neem is a part of my top 10
Mm,
favorite medicinal plants because it is so medicinal when you look at the research that's already been done. When you look at the folklore that they use it for, no part of the neem tree is wasted. Down to
mm,
the flower buds are eaten
mm-hmm,
as a part of salads. Now, why neem is a part of my favorite? One, the reasons I just mentioned, and also it does repel mosquito, but guess what? It repels everything else as well.
okay.
So it repels insects. You'll never find a lizard or an insect on a neem tree. Repel.
Wow.
So part of my favorite because I'm scared of lizards.
Wow. Yes.
But it
Yes.
and it all boils down again to its medicinal, the compounds within them. They're so
Mm-hmm.
strong. The birds
Mm-hmm.
only go for the flowers and only certain birds because again it's so strong, right?
Right.
It's used for for washout. It's used for stomach aches. It's used for blood pressure, for
Mm-hmm.
diabetes, and so on. And because it's a variety of compounds that's in there, so when you do the extraction, it's a different compound lower the blood pressure. It's a
Right.
different compound lower the blood sugar. But the thing with
Oh.
medicinal plants too, if your
Mm-hmm.
blood sugar is normal, it's not going to drop it. So it's not like, oh, don't drink neem, it's going to do that. If your
Mm-hmm.
blood pressure is normal, it's not going to drop it. However, as your grandmother you said, as they said, you have to make it weak. If you make it too strong, too concentrated,
Uh-huh.
then it will start causing additional effects and reducing it or dropping it too low or cause the washout and so on.
Okay.
If you haven't had neem before, it's bitter. So if you had sursi before, you kind of have
Mm-hmm.
an idea how neem tastes, but it's more bitter than sursi.
Mm. You know what it is reminding me of?
Which
Guinea
one?
hen weed.
Which one?
It's
Guinea hen
reminding me of
weed,
the
another of my
guinea.
favorite. Yes, you can't take the smell,
Jesus.
but
Oh my God.
it's in every yard, almost every yard in Jamaica. You can't. It's a weed you can't get rid of. You cut it
Mm-hmm.
once the root there is growing back. But tell you, let it grow, pick those leaves and boil it, and you'll prevent all the cancers,
Tell me
especially
something.
the roots.
Yes. I mean, I know it, I've heard about it's the, and I've probably picked it and probably boiled it, but not drink it. I'd probably want to powder it down and things. There's anything that I don't like the
Yeah.
scent of it, I'd probably want to powder it down and use it as a tablet. You
All right.
know?
Yes. Like for me, neem is very bitter. I
Mm-hmm.
love the effect of bitter, but I don't like the taste. So with that, what I do is I tip a little salt and it kind of negates the bitterness, right? So
Ah.
that's what I do.
Mm.
Plus, it don't drop I have marginal blood pressure, so it don't drop it too low and so on
Right.
and so forth. With the guinea hen weed, I love the effect it has. But as you say, I can't get past the smell. So when I take guinea hen as a tea, the root as a tea, I normally make it with ginger. So it tastes
Oh,
good and it's
learning
not so strong.
something. Yes, ginger
Or
is my all is my everything. Ginger is my
yes.
everything. Yeah.
And I did the leaves. I make a green juice once and I dropped some leaf in there and it wasn't overpowering. So you can, do
Mm-hmm.
different things and try it. Or you can just make a syrup and then you just have a little cap full.
Mm-hmm.
So the honey or, whatever
Right.
preparation you use kind of,
Right.
well, yeah,
Right.
you can manage a little taste
Mm-hmm.
and then you just drink some water and say, all right, that's my anti-cancer for the day.
Right. Right. So
But yeah.
time is going, but you
Mhm.
mentioned your top 10. Did you have your list with you, or it's just in your, do you can you kind of like,
Yeah, I didn't have the list, but when I'm researching plants and looking at, I have guinea hen weed, leaf alive, moringa,
mm,
ginger, turmeric,
right?
the neem, as I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what six. I'm trying to remember the others, but I
Is
have
lemongrass in there? Did you mention that one?
lemongrass is
That's
among it.
one of my all-time favorites as well.
Yes, and yeah, quite a few. I don't remember some of them, but
Mm-hmm.
eucalyptus. I can't leave out eucalyptus. But
Right.
sometimes when I start writing the lists, I
Mm-hmm.
reach like 20 and I have to cut to 50. So I have, and they're all found in Jamaica, and Jamaica has the better, well, not the better, a high quality, high effective
Mm-hmm.
portion. Even our Guinean weed, other countries have it, and when they extract the DTS that's active from the root,
Mm-hmm.
Jamaican Guinea hen root has a high concentration of it and is more medicinal, more potent.
Wow. Wow.
So the
Doc,
soil,
let me ask you this question. Does the Bible come into play in research? And the reason why I asked that question is a friend of mine recently brought up this scripture to me in Ezekiel, where it speaks about the rivers flowing into the sea, but on both sides you have these plants that all of it can be eaten. And the Bible talks about the plants and the herbs for the healing of the nation.
yeah.
Do researchers tap into that any at all to see what some of these things are good for and take that knowledge to the lab? Does that happen?
If me, I'm a SDA scientist. So I have
Okay.
that 7-day Adventist background as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I definitely do. At one point, I did do some research looking for Bible scripture that speaks about using plants as medicine and
Mm-hmm.
different scriptures in the Bible that talk about the different plants. You hear the Bible talk about hops. You hear it talk about olive oil. You hear it talk about so many different plants. And you're like, wow, it's all there and how they use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember which scripture where it said to how to prepare the plant. It said boil it
Oh.
with this and so on and so forth. So it can be food. But if you don't boil it that way, it can be a poison. I'm like,
Oh, I
okay.
need to go research that. I need to find that scripture.
Yes, I was preparing a presentation. So I did that to get putting together. It was at a Christian event. So I was
Mm-hmm.
putting that together and saying, yes, the Bible tells you so many plants and how to use them and what they're good for. I
Right.
use that information, even if not to do the extraction for it. I look up to see what has been done because they
Mm-hmm.
are native in some countries and are being used. So
Right.
yes, if Christian scientists, some will use it, and I
Mm-hmm.
definitely do use that
All
background
right.
as well.
When you talk about the immune system, what are some of the tips in terms of the herbs and spices that you would suggest that people can use to boost their immune system?
All right, boosting your immune system. My top 10 herbs, as you mentioned, the leaf of life.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter usually, if she coughs, mommy, I'm coughing. I was like, can I get a leaf of life? I was like, sure. She goes outside, picks it, drop a little salt, and just eat it like June plum.
Oh.
Yes, it tastes like. That's how I got her to try it. It's like June plum with salt, and she tried. I was like, oh, made the connection, and from that,
Yes. Wow.
I managed to get one up here, so it's now growing nicely finally.
Mm-hmm.
But leaf of life is good. Have it as a tea, or you can crush it out, as you said, with your salt
Right.
or your honey.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have your turmeric and ginger. That's a power duo.
Mm-hmm.
But do not leave out the little black pepper. Just sprinkle a little black pepper in it. You need the
Mm.
piperidine to get the curcumin from the turmeric to work,
Uh-huh.
to
Mm-hmm.
boost, to get your white blood cells mobilized, increase the amount you have, and get them going after anything that's found in the blood and your cells.
Mm.
Turmeric, your
Wow.
ginger, and as you mentioned, the pepper, the capsaicin in the pepper,
Mm-hmm.
these compounds is like a powerhouse. When you take them in and your cells like, what? Pepper is in the house, so to speak, attached to the cells, and they just start working and boosting, helping them to work much better. Right.
Right.
And as what's her name? I think it's Barbara. She's a herbalist from Australia. She normally said when your cells take in, when you eat and your cells take in these compounds, it's like when they go to they're in the door of your cells, your cell membrane. It's like, oh, do you need any turmeric or curcumin? And cell
Mm-hmm.
is like, no, we have enough. We're healthy. We're good, and it moves on. You don't have
Mm.
that toxicity unless
Okay.
you don't follow the instructions of how to prepare your
Mm.
compound.
Right.
So
Right.
all those instructions play a role in getting your system up. So your turmeric, your ginger, little pepper, garlic, and onion can be added to it as well. Those
Mm-hmm.
help. And in recent times, sometimes you hear about onion, you cut it and put it down, cleans the air.
Mm-hmm.
even with painting, they normally put it in the four corners when you paint a house. It absorbs all of those. And it's all chemical reactions, but that's
Right.
what grandparents usually do. And these help to boost
Wow.
and clean the air. And
Yeah,
even
I know about the
clean the
water
air.
when you paint. I didn't know about that at all.
Yes,
So I
that's right.
learned. Well, I'm learning a lot from you. Do you have a book? Have you put out a book with this knowledge, Doc?
Boy, Tanya, the book is on paper. I need to get it out, but I have it written in my book. So I need to
Because
know.
if
Type
you
the
go
book.
to Amazon, for example, and type in herbal, from Jamaica, stuff comes
Mm-hmm.
up, but it's not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
definitely not a lot of content out there. So there is space
For
for
it.
your researched
Yes.
information, and the fact that it does not discount the folklore is so
Yes.
important.
And I get asked that a lot too, where's
Mhm.
the book? And I'm like, I have it. But now that I'm finished with this aspect of life, school and so on, and now on a
Mhm.
break, I'm doing more writing. So I definitely want to put it out in due season.
We're holding you to that,
Yes.
holding you to that. No, we're coming to the end, but I just want to remind persons who is our guest today. This very special woman is Dr. Denise Daley. And please say it again, Doc. It's pharmacognosist. Did I get it right?
Pharmacognosy. You got it right.
Pharmacognosist, program director of the College of Health Sciences at the University of Technology,
Mhm.
and on top of the MPhil, and on top of the DocPhil, in natural products and everything. She just finished studying again in Canada. Doc, all of that knowledge, what
Yeah.
you doing with it? What are you doing with it?
Well, the plan is to combine the food and the herbs knowledge into a book, have it
Mm-hmm.
out there for persons to access. Also, I want to do, of course, go back to doing workshops. So you remember I did a few
Mm-hmm.
workshops. I've been on a break, but definitely going back to doing the workshops and teaching persons of how to do it. And I make products as well.
Right.
I make products as well. So how to put different herbs together. I help persons formulate different products,
Mm-hmm.
because the herbs are there. You can find it, you can use it and benefit from it. So
Right.
all those things. So more research, looking at different plants, indigenous
Right.
medicine.
Are
So
you on social media for persons who want to make contact and probably ask you anything about your research? How can people make contact with you?
yes, they can find me on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It's Dr. Denise Daily on Instagram.
Right.
And
Right.
on Facebook as well, Dr. Denise Daily,
Mm-hmm.
and email drdenisedaily@gmail.com.
Right. So,
Yes.
guys, if you are watching this, and I'm sure that if you have watched this, you have learned so much, or it has reminded you about what your grandparents or people in the country, whether you're in Jamaica or in India or in Africa
Yeah.
or in Canada or the US, something here is good for you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
please make contact with Dr. Denise Daly on her social media pages if you
Mm-hmm.
have additional questions. And it has been such a great pleasure to talk to you, Doc. I mean,
Always.
this kind of knowledge needs to get out into the mainstream space. The last question that I have to ask you is this.
Mm-hmm.
When the folklore is researched
Mm-hmm.
and you go into the lab and you verify the compounds,
Mm-hmm.
now we can make these tablets,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that sometimes after they've made the tablets and to sell them, they now begin to discount the source? Meaning that they now say, well, you need to buy this tablet because when you're boiling the herbs, you don't know if you're getting this or you're getting that. Is there validity to that argument?
Somewhat, it goes down to preparation and the company that
Mm-hmm.
produces it, right? Because where they get the plant material, that's important. Does it have its, standardization and
Mm-hmm.
regulations, the regulatory bodies? There's not one established yet in Jamaica. We have National Nutraceutical Industry, and they're
Mm-hmm.
looking at formalizing this. Sometimes you'll get a tablet and they say, yes, you can boil it. And other times they say, no. Again, it goes
Mm-hmm.
on to the source and the manufacturer. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you boil it, you're destroying the compounds. while the other manufacturer might have prepared it in a particular way to protect the actives, that makes it, okay to boil.
Mm-hmm.
So there can be some
Yeah.
information, something there. So
Because,
yeah.
recently a few months ago, I made my moringa tablets using, of
Mhm.
course, the knowledge that I learned from Dr. Denise
Yes,
Daley at UTech in the course that I did. But I noticed that I've got moringa from two sources and the
Mhm.
color was different, but that was not what made, when I took them,
Mhm.
one, I didn't feel any effect. And the
Mhm.
other one, I could feel after a couple of days,
The
like my
difference.
energy level was different. And like I was feeling like I was losing a little weight and so on,
Mhm.
because I know that moringa has a lot of different vitamin
Wow. Yes.
compounds in there. But
Mhm.
I realized that you have to also be careful of the
Source.
source, because I think in my mind, I'm thinking maybe one is solar dried
Mhm.
and one maybe another technique. Can you
Yeah.
give us any tips on what to look for if we're buying herbs in the herbal shops? And that would be my last question, but I think it's a very important one.
Yes, it is important, and I always refer to the song Helena. You know the Helena go up, run with her. Yes, and you say Helena go home, go boil Cersei for your belly, and
Yes.
Helena pick the wrong bush.
Hmm.
Always refer to that. It is important that we know the herb we're gonna buy. So wherever you're going, have the scientific name. So you can
Hmm.
ask them. If you want it specifically, you can get scientific name with the variety. That makes it even easier. Now, where you find that the two moringa were different, probably is the growth conditions as well.
Mm.
That can be a case. Growth conditions, how it's dried, as you said, can be a
Hmm.
case. Now, the least amount of heat is best. It's always good to air dry, solar dry, because
Hmm.
again, you safeguard the compounds in them.
Right.
So these practices, and you hear like if it's not machine picked, hand picked is better because
Hmm.
you'll hear the elders say, when you pick it, there's more love versus the machine and all of that. So it goes
Right.
in how you prepare your food too.
Right.
So all of that play a role in your compounds that are found in here. It's just like farming. You can plant yam here and there, but one yam tastes better because of the
Hmm.
soil. Even lemongrass, for example, if you plant lemongrass and water it every day, it don't do as good as if you just leave it to grow by and
Right.
develop by
And it
itself.
loves a lot of space and so on.
Yes, and you not babying it. It loves the rough life, gives it all the essential oils that it needs to protect itself.
Right.
So the source is important. So if you're gonna make like the tablets or capsules, you wanna, ensure you have the same quality, because
Hmm.
sometimes that's where a person say, you know what, I buy it and it work, and then the next time I buy it and it don't work. So you lose that credibility with the herbs
Right.
as
Right.
well. So if
Right.
you keep consistent with your source, you can keep consistent with your compounds and your quality. So that's
Wow.
important. Mhm.
Dr. D, you have blessed me and bless
Thank
Jamaica
you.
and everybody that is going to see this with a wealth of knowledge today. And I am grateful that you were able to take the time to be with us today on Empowerment Wednesday. Thank you so much. God bless you and God bless your entire family.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Always love
I
talking about
enjoyed
her.
it. So, in the closing moments of this, I just want to remind persons that you can go to my website, taniasbodycare.org, and you can find soaps and oils that have some of these. Dr. Denise Daly makes stuff as well. She's, going to be working more on it.
Yeah.
But there are persons out there who are doing natural products in
Mhm.
Jamaica that they are great. For my tagline for Tania's Body Care is food for your skin,
Yeah.
right? So support us. And I just want to just ask persons these empowering questions as we close the show. Are you where you
Mhm.
want to be in life?
Mhm.
What do you need to get to your destination? Do you have a skill? What's your goal and how do you begin to achieve them? Is your vision clear? Have you put it on paper?
Paper.
And so,
Amen.
from me to you, God bless you. And thank you for tuning in today to Empowerment Wednesday. God
Amen.
bless you.
Take
Thank you,
care.
Doc.
Thank you. You're welcome. Take care.